believers of the television programming. 33 with a double E, yeah. WWWWF. Now you're out of breath. It's the mask of the beast, mask of the beast, mask of the beast, mask of the beast. It's the mask of the beast, mask of the beast. Faceless cock, another NPC. Oh, I think they made a typo, just like Tuttle Bottle, but the R is the S. With a double E, yeah. WWWWF. Now you're out of breath. It's the mask of the beast, 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 mask of the beast. Faceless cock, another.
I'm so COVID-cued, I think I got a real bad coop. I need to get out of the house instead of doing what you tell me to. I caught the COVID cooties, now my life is like a movie. I caught the COVID cuties, now my life is like a movie. I'm not staying home. I'm filming all the empty hospitals. Exposing Christ's action sheep, running through all of these psyops.
All right, 3/13/2024, 4 years from the declaration of the state of emergency. That was a Friday the 13th, and that is COVID Cooties by Symbia. One of the best things to come out of 2020. Let's see what we have here. Twitch and YouTube and DLive are on. We're joined by HBIC, Frank Murr, Holly Weird, Benton, Peace Circle 360, Ted Stryker, Dewis Impera, Clockwork 113. Yeah, is it COVID cooties or cuties? It's kind of both. And it's cooties in a way. I mean, we're talking about something that doesn't really exist in the sense that the believers would insist it does. It's kind of just a mind game, hypochondria. Cooties do not exist. Is that misinformation? Is my video going to be flagged? There's no such thing as cooties. Phones are open if anybody has anything of importance, or even not. First-time callers are always welcome. 505-349-0420. We value your perspective. Your perspective is valuable. You may have insights we do not have. Doesn't matter where you are in terms of your perspective. I just like to know where people are coming from. It tells you something. All right, let's see what we have here. Main topic today, there's a few things. Planes falling out of the sky. You know, cannibalism's so hot right now, but leave the world behind is indeed happening. How is Mike Rothschild coping with this? He came out and he said, predictive programming doesn't exist. And I tweeted at him and I said, look, Leave the World Behind has been predicting this, this, and that. And I was pointing at various events that were concurrent with the release of the movie, and he reacted to me. Not directly, but indirectly. Like a lot of these, whatever, I don't know what it is with these influencers. They have big channels, and if you level a solid criticism, they won't respond at you and give you the attention. They'll create a new tweet and pretend like they're just saying it out of the blue. But he posted something about how there's no such thing as predictive programming. Well, the whole movie was about planes falling. And we have seen nothing but prophecy coming true. The Obama prophecies have all been more or less coming true. We're just waiting for the big one, but it's building up to it. And to say predictive programming doesn't exist is to admit that one is ignorant about this particular facet of propaganda. It's like saying atrocity propaganda doesn't exist or propaganda doesn't exist. The propaganda, when we look at the past, it's like it's pretty obvious. How do people fall for these perception management operations, these influence operations? And you have to remember that they exist in a bubble. You look at people in weird religious cults, UFO cults, Haley's, what is it, Comet Hale-Bopp and the Marshall Applewhite, the Heaven's Gate cult, Jim Jones, Don't Drink the Kool-Aid, Alex Jonestown. How do people fall into these cults? Well, these are echo chambers. And what I'm suggesting is the mainstream media is such a huge echo chamber that the people who are inside of it cannot even contemplate that it doesn't work the way they report it does. As in, they think that the media are eyewitnesses who run out and record stuff for you, so you have a window to the world. He doesn't recognize the level of filtration or that media is an extension of government and it's a form of mind control, and that we are in a 24/7, 365 psychological warfare zone and always have been. But if he's not willing to even consider that, even just to entertain it without accepting it, like Aristotle would suggest, an educated person, an educated mind is one that can entertain without accepting, but they can't even think outside of their box to see that there is a concerted effort to build a worldview that actually uses entertainment as a subset of the same mind control as the news media, and that these things cannot be separated. There's no meaningful distinction between Netflix and your nightly news, and that's not hyperbole. When I say you can watch Netflix to know what's going on in the news or what's going to happen, that it's a black mirror that tells the future, I'm not even exaggerating, and we have been vindicated way too many times. And I have too many, quote, coincidences, eerie coincidences that have even been reported on to say that there's not something going on. Now, you may dispute what it means, but you can't say it's cherry picking. You can't say it's cognitive bias because it's just too well timed. And the timing is what gives it away. But we talk about this quite often. Let's go ahead and get started through my notes. FoxBusiness.com. Oh, here we go. Boeing failed 33 out of 89 audits during FAA examination report. This is something that came up yesterday, and I think this is good. You know what's interesting is I've noticed that the football player flat earthers are smarter than the mixed martial arts flat earthers. The MMA types get into the Bible, QAnon, Bible Earth with the dome over it, and they're just kind of in that area. They're not really media skeptics in the sense that we are. But I find that the ones who are in the football arena are more likely to be agnostic. Like we had one, Tyler Owen, I believe he's a draftee, and he's like, I don't believe in space. Well, this is a pretty good one. This is another one. This is Levon Bell, debate social media proof of Earth being flat. And I have a few pull quotes from here, but one of the things he says here is who's actually right and who's actually wrong. You can't prove the Earth isn't flat, just like you can't prove that it is flat either. It's just a belief. I'll get some other quotes out of it, but Levon Bell is debating on whether there's proof the Earth is flat. And what this raises here is the question of who owns the burden of proof. And my contention here is that if you say the burden of proof is yours as the media consumer, then you're admitting that the media owns your mind. They decide what's real for me, not my perceptions. They have perception override. You see that screen there? That black box in the corner of the room? Yeah, that screen is it's a digital veil, and I put it over my eyes, and I'm just going to go ahead and make my perceptions secondary to theirs, because that's what's going on here. You can look at your television, and it's not just the news, but I'm talking monolithically. That black screen, filtered through Big Brother's filter, is the universal Bible for the one world view that we're all expected to take up. For 5 seasons, from 2013 to 2017, Levon Bell was one of the, if not best, running backs in the NFL, and now he's promoting the theory that the world is flat. But let me get into some of the quotes here, just so you know where he's coming at. Okay, now he says, how do you know the Earth isn't flat? He wrote on X. Just like you believe the Earth is not flat because they've had those spheres in classrooms growing up, so you believe the Earth is shaped like a sphere. But who's actually right and who's actually wrong? LOL, you can't prove the Earth isn't flat. It's a belief. You can't sit here and say his belief is wrong. Anyway, my point is, he's raising the question of, is it a matter of belief? And I've been saying for some time that globe belief, flat earth belief, these are both models that aren't tested by the believer. And these are optional in a sense, and they're pretty much interchangeable. I mean, if you're not going to test it. And I don't contend that flat earth is a model. They'll say, where's your model? I'm like, where's yours? I know, I mean, your model is, in my view, incompatible with perception. And I think if you're not willing to take that leap of faith through the screen, you're kind of left in the realm of agnosticism, of non-belief. And non-belief is way more defensible than belief in something that you can't even test. At least if you want to have the standard of being, I don't know, speaking from objective reality. Not everybody wants that. A lot of people are content with the reality fluid view of things, the Manduzel world. And I don't have a problem with that. You know, I'm really here for open mind. This is open-minded discourse, but I think it's an objective fact that humanity is being managed through this ubiquitous war, and not all of us fall for it. Not all of us are compatible with it, and why should we be? But I'm not trying to wake the sleepers. I'm not really going after Normieville. We have more important things to do first, like consolidate a raft, so we can have some fruitful conversations coming from a perspective based in objective reality that takes into account the existence of the elephant in the room, the big monolithic mind control operation. And most of the media skeptics that I speak to, especially the ones who do it all the time, who spend all their time on this, like JLB and Fakeologist, they have very positive attitudes, but they're also very productive. And what I mean is like, they're not escapists. They're very engaged, but they're not doomsayers. They're not doom boofers. But if you go to any red pill community, any group of truthers, it's all gather up your guns, gather up your ammunition. We're going to win by bullet or by ballot. We're going to win for Trump. It's like, what happened here? Here's a tweet from Michael It's Level. He says 1,564,024 doomsday predictions. 0 times these apocalyptic events have occurred. Those stats don't phase the doom and gloomers. Yeah, look, we have to put a deadline on this. if the world doesn't begin to finally end on 4/8, doesn't have to end, but the beginning of the end, if the beginning of the end isn't on 4/8 with the eclipse, then there's a few Twitter channels we have to block, and I'll start addressing them. I mean, I've already called out a few of them. Donnie Darkind has really disappointed me. I appreciate a lot of his work, however, he's taking predictive programming to lead people to think that the world's going to literally end, and that you need to go ahead and get right with his version of Christianity, which is really strange. You're having these internet prophets, and this guy's avatar is a Donald Trump face with red glowing eyes, who he contends is the Antichrist. So you have the Antichrist Trump face with the glowing eyes reading Bible verses telling you to give your soul to Jesus. And I'm like, this is strange. Like, doom scrolling is weird, but this doomsday apocalyptica, it's very strange. It's very culty. All right, let me catch up on some comments. Dewis and Paris says it makes sense then that the flat earth operatives try to tie flat earth investigation into a belief in God. Oh yeah, they actively outgrouped anybody who didn't. The Infinite Plane Society was named as such. We were making a distinction between what we were positing and what they had already settled. They said, oh, we figured it out. It's a disk with a dome over it. I'm like, what's outside the dome? What's the curve of the dome? Does the dome touch the ground? What's it made of? No answers. No curiosity. It was like, read your Bible. I'm like, you know what? I'm sorry, but we're trying to, at least with the IPS, our concept is and has been from the beginning. Let's break out of their worldview, which is clearly what the globe concept does from the get-go. It puts you in a closed system, and let's see what additional facts are available, which may take more information. But no, they had settled on a model, and those who didn't agree with it were outgrouped as Satanists, as whatever labels they could come up with. And so Infinite Plane Society, they were like, oh, well, even Russian Vids, who changed his name to, what, Ukraine Vids, whatever he is these days, he was like, the Bible doesn't say infinite plane. That's a satanic blasphemy. And I'm like, I'm not saying as a fact that it's an infinite plane, although if you were to look at the dominant paradigm and how they explain it, they say the universe is flat. But leaving that aside, I'm just saying we need more information. Let's consider our options open, infinite, until proven otherwise. But these same people who chastise us for saying that it wasn't a pizza disc under a dome are now embracing what they call the extended plane. Infinite Plane Radio. What's up, caller?
Hello, how you doing, Tim?
Very well, very well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. And what topic has piqued your interest?
Uh, you've always had a great opinion. No, sometimes I agree with you, sometimes I don't, but I do respect your opinion.
Awesome. And that's a good starting point for anything, really, because we're here because we are, in a sense, philosophers. We like the ideas themselves and the knowledge. And I learn a lot from wrong answers. And I learned the most from when I've been wrong. And I was wrong about my worldview up until 2013. I was 100% wrong. And I've become less wrong over time.
Somewhere about that. Somewhere about that I caught on the same train. But my question was, a whole lot of these big podcasts now are talking about souls and, oh, your soul this, your soul that, and it's quite a time to be talking about that subject. Why do you think they're talking about it now? Why is it so important now and not then?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the conversation has always been kind of hijacked by religion. And I try to bring up, beyond all the fake news, we have all this strange ritual stuff, and it all deals with our spiritual, or the spiritual aspects of reality. And we talk about loosh, the concept of are they in some way entraining us so they can harvest our soul energy, whatever that is. But this conversation, I think, is timely, and I think there's a lot of people interested in it, looking outside of just the very simple thing or the simple soul dualism, but going into what is it exactly? I mean, what is your take on?
And then we've always been talking about it, but now that they are talking about it, it's just like we don't know why they want to push this on us, but My opinion is just I am what I am. I believe what I believe. If you want to change my opinion, let's talk about it. Maybe you can change my mind in the conversation. Maybe you can't. But if you can't prove your opinion with words, then it's not valid.
Yeah, I agree with that. I try to look for logical fallacies because it's easy to get somebody to accept something by a sleight of mind, is what I call it. And I think the mass media mostly relies on a lot of trickery to get people to accept things. And these days it's even worse, I believe, because it's visual trickery. How do you get someone to not believe something that they believe they have seen, because they've seen it on a screen? So we live in a time where people have never been easier to deceive.
We've always been programmed in what we watch in the media that we've been given, and then now, well, they've showed us enough, and then now I guess they feel comfortable enough to talk about it.
They wouldn't allow us to talk about it in the way that they allow it if it wasn't something they controlled or they had a lot of operatives in there. I feel like they involve themselves. When I say the media itself, it has like an immune system. And it just seems like a lot of limited hangout operations. Like they talk about something so they
Uh,
can control the release.
See, because well, us, the people we have pushed, they've always blocked it out from YouTube. They've been this subject, and now
Wait, one really quick
all of
here.
a sudden,
Hold on a sec. Your phone is just breaking up for just a second. If you want to repeat what you just said.
oh, yes, they've always canceled people like that talk about these things, and then now all of a sudden it's cool to talk about it. That's where I get iffy on all subjects.
Okay.
Once it gets cool to talk about it, do I
Yeah.
make any sense? Am
Yeah.
I?
Yeah. Absolutely. Like they make, like for example, what's with these celebrities who will take these ideas and then run with them, and it makes it seem like okay, now this can be discussed, and often they do that to take an idea down. For example, they brought out the flat Earth topic with Kyrie Irving, and now he drowns out all of the regular people on the internet who talk about it, and he doesn't interact with any of them. So he's got this fame, he's got the numbers, the people following him, but he doesn't reach down to the people. He keeps it up there where the media can shoot it down by shooting down this one person. So I'm very cautious about anything that's allowed to be leaked out there.
Yes. So for the example I have, so you remember back with the whole Nipsey Hussle thing when you were talking about it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes. So now, have you seen that there's this guy that's talking about it? He's like the big gang leader over there in LA, whoever it is. It doesn't bother me. I don't live anywhere near there. But oh, there was a call. He knew that that situation was like you could see it. Their vehicles are sloppy.
Yeah, for people who
Cause
aren't.
I think it was like Big U, Big Herc, something like that, or I don't know, something like that. But like one of those guys, and then now you could see it, cause like I've been following you long enough now where I picked up on the details, and then now you see their stories sloppy, and they're just throwing stuff out there pretty much.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I find interesting is, and a lot of people say it seems like they're getting sloppier and sloppier, but it's really that we're becoming more aware because I look at the older psychological operations, the older crisis actors, etc., and they've always been terrible. It's always been just bad government actors. But it's until you pay attention. And I think we've been trained to kind of tune it out, the news in particular. But when you really look at it, it's fascinating because it's in our faces, but we're trained not to see, and it's an awakening of a sort, just to be made aware of the fact that you're being lied to all the time.
Right, right. And then just a little piece of advice. you should always go back on what you used to talk about just because it's always valid. Facts are facts. You can't lie about facts. And Nipsey Hussle, Nipsey Hussle,
Okay. You know what I'll do? Um,
Tupac,
I
Kill the MC, all that, I remember. I remember. We
no.
can't forget those points because those are the points that get the newcomers to follow along.
Okay. You know what?
We don't need them. We don't want them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's because like a lot of the times we get lost in the subject because what you talk about is like a little advanced for the people like that are getting new to the subject and they might get lost. But
Yeah.
those are facts.
And from a
Those are
marketing
facts.
perspective, I think it might be a good idea as well. And so, you know what? I'm going to do this. I have this monetized channel. I can upload videos now. I'm going to do a collection I was planning on, but we'll go back subject by subject and I'll do like an hour breakdown in a YouTube uncensorable safe version. Because, yeah, we could easily create dozens of hours of content going back years. That is 100% valid. You're right about that. And we'd probably attract a lot of
And
really great
you've
minds.
already talked about it. It is there. It is there. Like it's not like you don't have to talk about it. You could just probably put out the old material again, and it'll catch on who we need to catch on, and whoever doesn't catch on, we didn't need you on the team anyway.
Okay, what I'll do then is I'll go back specifically for the old material, and I'll be cutting up parts and representing it because I wanted to update the 24/7 looping live streams, and we had so many callers back then as well. So yeah, I'll take that into account here, and I'll definitely put that on my priority list here.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Keep doing what you're doing, brother. You're doing you're doing all the work that needs to be done. Thank you.
All right, well, appreciate the call, and have a great evening. Thank you. All right,
Yes,
everyone,
sir.
another great caller. We picked up a lot of callers with the faux death of Nipsey Hussle, and the reason why we do need to keep a lot of these previous events in a loop is that there is no continuity. The collective mind doesn't have a memory that's not rooted in the mainstream media reality. We have to remember that all of the stuff that we are talking about is stuff that only remains valid in our minds because the mainstream media becomes history. You go to a history book, go to any textbook, open it up. The official version, the official mainstream media version of any event is going to be the one reported. The crime statistics, yeah, they're going to add in a bunch of atrocity propaganda and mass shootings that didn't happen. It's like we're so far outside of their box, and they look at someone like Alex Jones, for example. Right now, Alex Jones is being targeted by an HBO documentary coming up, and it's going to mainly focus on the S Hook thing. I'm reticent to even say the name, but the whole point of it is, I think, to destroy in advance any type of organized online demographic that is focused on media deconstruction. And I think I've said this many times, but it's worth repeating. Alex Jones is a fake canary in a fake coal mine, and his job is to run laps around a big tree called Sandy Hook in order to distract Trutherville from the forest of fakery. Because every mass shooting, every mass casualty event, every terror attack is produced by the same monolithic media. So when you're looking at one and saying, oh, this one's sus, but this one, it's real. I'm like, wait a minute here. You're missing something. And what are they missing? They're missing the fact that they're treating the media as though the media is being objective. And this is one of the points I wanted to raise today. Those reporters are considered to be objective by most people, and especially truthers. They think the reporters are eyewitnesses. And that's their big trick. They convince you that their reporters are eyewitnesses. And maybe some of them are, the ones who aren't fully in the know. But they're really not pure eyewitnesses. They're tainted witnesses because they're believers in the worldview they promulgate. And it's something that's we're going to make. I'll make a bigger point of this here in a minute. I actually have a blog post on this because someone had raised a kind of a rebuttal recently. It was a caller, and we were talking about some event. Maybe it was in Ohio, the train derailment. But whatever it was, this person had said something along the lines of, I don't know, I wasn't there. And for some reason, it kind of bothered me, but I didn't exactly know how to confront this. I don't know, I wasn't there. And what I've concluded today is that it's a cop out, that it's an indirect argument from authority. That's what it really amounts to. But what I'm saying is, on what basis can we call fake news fake? If I say, hey, that's fake, and someone else says, you weren't there, well, you weren't either. So then, how do we decide who has the authority to say it's fake? Well, it depends. Who is the authority over your mind? You or the government? You or the media? And when I say media, it's an extension of government. So if you're saying, well, I don't have the authority to call it fake because I wasn't there, well, then the media has become the authority over your mind, which means you've put a lot of faith and trust in them, which is naive to say the least. But those who argue against the critique of media that we proffer here will say something like this, I don't know because I wasn't there. But the implication is also to suggest that we, the non-media, weren't there, so we can't know. Now, to say nothing's knowable or real unless you can personally or physically attest to it is an unreasonable burden of proof, and it's tantamount to reality denialism. But what we're doing here isn't reality denialism. We're distrusting liars, and we're in fact defending reality. Isn't that what we're doing? It's real versus fake. And fake is the winner, has been for a long time. Fake won a long time ago. We are in a deep faked reality. But what we're doing is we're insisting on it. We're holding liars accountable. But we know something has happened. When something is reported, something has happened. You can't say that something didn't happen, but we're just differing on the definition of what exactly was it. Was it the event as reported, or is it some kind of a simulation, perception management? Is it pure propaganda? Or is its propaganda utility simply the fact that this happens to be what they're focusing on to the exclusion of something else? I mean, much of the worldview we have is the result of omission, lies by omission. But it's up to the individual news consumer to decide where they place that burden of proof. If one trusts media and accepts the claims at face value, then the default is that each story is true unless stated otherwise. And to me, that's an ironic thing to say, well, they'll tell me if they're lying. Okay, so the pathological liar is going to tell you when it's lying. You're gonna just go wait. Like, I'm just gonna trust them unless they've been caught, in other words. But occasionally, the mass media will expose a liar, like Brian Williams or Jussie Smollett. And they do these things in a very dramatic way to kind of make it look like, hey, if someone lies to us, it's going to be a scandal and we're going to expose it. And this is to give viewers the impression that lies are an exception to the rule. But lies are in fact rewarded, not punished. But the faithful adherents to the Church of the MSM trust the media and they accept the burden of proof. It's like that's their cross to bear. They have a TV on their backs. They're bearing the burden of proof unnecessarily. It's not up to you. It's a philosophical question here. And what I'm saying is that people are allowing their perspective of media to, in a way, warp their worldview because they're trusting that the people on the other side aren't manipulating them. And this is a major difference. We are operating with the understanding that psyops happen. Predictive programming is not a conspiracy theory. It's a standard operating procedure. But those rejecting the screen's implicit arguments from authority, those of us, we can only claim to know something's been reported, but we're not operating with the assumption that the reporters are eyewitnesses. And that's a tricky thing, because you have to remember that most even truthers are taking for granted what's on the screen and then they're believing there's more to it, but they're not automatically remembering that the reporters themselves are tainted witnesses. They're not valid as eyewitnesses at all. Maybe on some local news reports you can trust them on the weather, perhaps, maybe, but can you even then? Like, sure, you can in a way, but they politicize the weather as well. Let me go through some comments here. All right. And phones are still open, by the way. Okay, well, I had a final point here, the summary. The rational follow-up, when somebody says, you don't know, you weren't there, or I don't know, I wasn't there, which again, this is an indirect argument from authority. The rational response would be, I don't know either, but my default position is fake until proven real. Given that all mass media propaganda events occur in the context of this ubiquitous but covert psychological warfare campaign. And that's pretty much it. That we are merely saying that you can say it's fake. You can have authority over your own mind. You don't have to accept the screen as an authority. It's not logical, it's not rational. It's an unfair thing for you to accept that burden of proof, and it's not yours. Last night we talked about the new normal, cannibal gangs, killer clouds. I think Richie from Boston is suffering from chemtrail lung. Uh, Falling planes, black market baby organs. Now let's go to the falling planes. This was compiled by They Live We See on Twitter. This is pretty interesting. Airbus 340 vanishing from the skies. We're looking at all these various article headlines that correspond to Leave the World Behind. Oldest passenger planes in the sky. Passenger jet in limbo. They canceled the flight due to smelly plane. Pilot abandons landing as it approaches runway 1,500 feet below the usual height. Passengers panicked as Scott's airport emergency crews swarm plane. These are just a random collection of headlines, but I have a lot of them. What the F? Tire falls from plane, smashes into a parked car. People are screaming and crying. Plane engine catches fire midair. Higher taxes for passengers. 737 chief leaves Boeing after mid-air incident. Passenger arrested after headbutting flight attendant. And this is, again, just a small collection of headlines, random. But it's consistent with this notion that they're using predictive programming. And one more point. For the Mike Rothschilds who say that there is no such thing as predictive programming, how would you explain all of the mainstream media news events reporting on the public referencing Leave the World Behind for planes falling and phones being shut down? G33 says Alex Jones says TV is a weapon. I think he's correct on that. Yeah, he is correct. But he's also on the other side of that weapon pointed at you. And one more point, they're going to take the guns thing. Yeah, that's a psyop. They're not going to take your guns. They were never going to. And the purpose of the psyop is to keep the right in a defensive posture in a state of agitation and paranoia and fear against government. And there's a reason why this narrative began at Waco and why Trump kicked off his campaign at Waco and Jones was at Waco. This is long-term strategic planning. We've talked about this a lot. 1.6 was always in the script. Even with Waco, 1.6 million rounds. That was the ATF report. They said there's 1.6 million rounds, weapons violation, so they had to go in. And 33-year-old Dave Koresh got killed. And he didn't come back with the four horsemen of the apocalypse as he said he would. I mean, it was a cult that was led by a guy that was believed to be Jesus, and they went to take the guns. Well, Alex Jones was radicalized there. Timothy McVeigh was radicalized there. Later, Alex Jones goes on to Piers Morgan, and he says, the DHS bought 1.6 billion hollow point rounds to kill patriots. If they try to take the guns, there's going to be a 1776. So another 1.6. And then 1.6 happens. And these are just a few examples. We have dozens. But my point of it is, these are like markers. There's a consistent theme here that goes into this paranoid right-wing fantasy that our AR-15s are a firewall against global tyranny. Infinite Plane Radio.
Hi, Tim. My name is Mike. I'm a first-time caller.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you for calling.
How you doing?
Very good. And what topic has piqued your interest this evening?
Well, I just walked in the door. I saw an email, and I've been wanting to call you, hoping for a live show so I could ask you a few questions. I didn't really hear the topic, but do you mind if I just ask you a question? It's
Yeah,
about the
it's open topics tonight, so yeah, by all means.
open topic. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, I'm for the most part I track with a lot of what you talk about, but then there's just some things that I don't quite understand. Maybe I'm just not interpreting it correctly. But in regards to the contrails, chemtrails, whatever, I know what you've said about it, but maybe I misunderstand because there's obviously something in the sky that I see. It's like these planes are just flying around willy nilly, making tic tac toe stuff in the sky. What is it? I mean,
Yeah,
if it's not toxic, then I mean, are they trying to lead us to believe to fear that it's toxic?
yes.
But I mean,
I,
it's not just clouds because I see it.
no, you're right. You do see it. And what I'm saying is this: is that
Yeah,
we're asking, what is it? And
right,
the framing of the question is what creates the misperception. So, for example, if you were to look at, well, we'll stick with this trails. You look at it, you're like, well, what are they spraying? That's
right,
a loaded question because it contains the premise that there's a substance in the plane that is being ejected out, and
right. Okay,
it preemptively rules out, well, what does hot air do in the rarefied atmosphere with this humidity condition? So what I'm suggesting here is that when we ask the question, even though we know
hmm,
we're being lied to, the liars aren't always lying. And what we can trust are repeatable, testable results. So you have probably witnessed these things, and you're like, well, wait a minute here. They fly over,
yeah,
clear sky, there's trails, and then it rains. So your logic is, you're like, okay, well, this and that seems to follow, and then it rains. And a lot of people stick with that. But the
yeah,
mind game is that the conditions for precipitation were there already, which is why you had persistent trails. The trails didn't cause it. So I'm saying it's
right.
mainly a misperception. And I believe that this misperception is intentionally being created.
Okay.
I think it's an intentional psyop to create fear, no different than climate change.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe in that either. But so you're not denying that there's actually something in the sky that we're just not making it up, right?
Oh no,
It's
that's the
just that
thing.
it may not be toxic. And
We're seeing the same thing. I'm not denying it,
yeah,
but
right.
we are having different interpretations as to what it means. But for the
Yeah,
longest time, I understand. It's like, well, why wouldn't they? They're lying to us in the news. They're using trauma-induced mind control on the children with these hyper-realistic school shooting drills. Why wouldn't they just spray us for the fun of it? But even that
right.
falls into the fallacy of appeal to motive. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that this might be another psyop targeting people who don't believe in climate change to keep everyone on the same sheet. That man's about to destroy the
Yeah,
planet with geoengineering.
I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, really. Okay, so can I jump to another topic now?
Yeah, and one more point though. Here's what really made
Okay.
me the final, like this is it. The final nail in the coffin here is that I found some charts the Air Force has used since the 60s to predict
Okay.
when the trails would form, and they said it's because they didn't want their military jets to be viewed by the enemies. So they were able to predict it, and if it means, so if they're using these charts to predict it, then it's predictable. And if it's predictable, and chemtrail theory isn't, contrail theory has to win. That was what settled it for me. But we can move on
Yeah.
from there.
Well, okay. Well, going back to what you're talking about, then you mentioned climate change. These people are all like they want to go green and all that, and they're all worried about climate change. But then they got these planes up in the sky. Just, I mean, they're not passenger planes, right? They're just flying, spraying whatever. I mean, isn't that putting out like a carbon footprint type thing? Or
That's
I guess that's okay.
ironically, they have been saying this. They're okay. After 9/11, they grounded the planes, and it was reported after that the temperature of the world went up a little bit because the planes weren't blocking the sun. So NASA has been suggesting for a long time that contrails are screwing up the environment. So it's kind of interesting now that the conspiracy theorists are in total agreement with NASA that whatever the planes are doing, it's bad for the globe. And they both agree, or at least NASA says, we need to do something about this. Less flying, for example.
Huh. Wow. Okay, and then the other thing about on the topic of the vaccines, um, you were the other day I was listening. It was a restream, and you were talking about that there is no like sudden deaths or something going on, or mass deaths.
Oh yeah, I I,
Did
I don't. Well, one thing here is I don't have any reason to believe
uh
in any of the anti position. And I don't believe the pro position. I think the anti and the pro are both controlled. You got the mainstream and the alt mainstream. The
okay,
skeptical view doesn't include fictional mass die offs. And you haven't seen a pile of bodies. You haven't personally witnessed it
no, I
on
haven't.
with
Yeah, you're
either
right.
cause. And so it's like, well,
Uh
it's
huh.
another one of these things where I think it's a belief that is promulgated by
So,
controlled opposition.
do you think that the whole VAERS deal is a psyop then? It's not real, or
I think you have to look at who is making a claim. Like they'll point
uh
to
huh.
like the Mavers argument. It's like Ma Bible or NASA footage. It's another one of these arguments from authority, but you have to look at how people are using it. And militant anti-Vs are just as trustworthy as militant pro-Vs. I don't trust either side. And if somebody's taking a
Right.
side, they have an agenda. And if they're
Yeah.
taking a side, they're also brainwashed and they're part of the political horseshoe and they're not skeptics. And I'm really here for media skepticism, not for the people who have an
And
agenda to defeat the liberals or the deep state or whatever.
the whole excuse me, the whole myocarditis and all that, the supposed
Now we're getting into this area
uh
here. We're getting this area here where we're gonna flag the channel. But look,
oh, okay,
what do I
okay, well,
say
I'll
is that
stop.
like,
Like I said, this is my
look,
first time
oh
calling,
no,
so
that's fine. That's fine. What I'm saying is that like
I don't know the rules, man.
I am no, there's no rules here. What I'm saying is that
Okay.
anti-V is a controlled
Anti-V.
opposition position, and I'm not
Okay.
anti-V. I'm not pro-V. I'm not taking a side on it because it is an issue that was planted there to polarize the left and the right. So your skepticism against it, whether you realize it or not, has put you into the herd that is on the right side of the political horseshoe. We are over the
Huh.
horseshoe. I mean, and that it could be your opinion,
Okay.
but what I'm saying is that, and my opinion on this is pretty well established, and I've said this since 2020, that what they've
Yeah.
done
No,
is,
I'm open, man, because I know that we've been lied to for forever, so I don't know what to believe
well,
anymore.
do you believe in sin? As in, do you believe in like the traditional concept of sin, and the priests can absolve you of it by dunking you in water or giving you communion wafers? Do you believe in that?
No, well, I'm looking at it because a Christian, so I do believe in sin, but I don't believe no priest could dunk you, and only
Okay,
Jesus can.
okay, good. So
His blood, you know what I mean?
like, okay, this is analogous here because I believe we can get sick.
Okay,
Like we all know this. However,
right.
what we have done with the sin concept is you give the priesthood a power to designate certain things bad, and therefore they have the power to regulate those people, segregate society into saved and unsaved, and create all these rules. So it's about power over people because you have this division between saved and unsaved, and it's all based on whether they follow the church, follow the priesthood. And the media has the
Yeah.
same dynamic established. So the people who are part of it, who accept the neo Eucharist, the injectable Eucharist, they are saved. The people outside the
Okay.
media, which is the new church, are the unsaved. They've created this division. So what they have done for an atheistic society is they have reintroduced the concept of sin with the priesthood and all the powers of regulation and the power to save. But they've replaced it with something scientific. You can't put sin under a microscope. So this is a new
Right.
religion, is what my point is. So my whole point of
Yeah, that's
is that
heavy.
the whole anti-V movement is missing the point, and the pro-V movement is the new religion, and the new religion is not based on anything more than a placebo that's designed to replace the illusion that the Eucharist would provide, that this priesthood can fix us and the people who aren't part of it are bad. But you can see it. That's my point.
Hmm.
It's a new religious paradigm based on the old one.
So, I didn't take the V, right? does that put me on a particular side because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe in the whole C-19 thing, and I didn't trust the
Right.
government. It was all
Uh,
dumb. I mean,
it's kind of
that,
interesting because they don't want you to have the opt out. Like there's this thing is split in two ways. Like you got to be pro or anti. What about the people who are non participants, conscientious objectors?
right.
And I saw this as a political decision. And I don't like being
Uh-huh.
forced to make a political decision if you're given a false choice or two sides of the same coin. So we don't have a position. We don't have a platform that represents us. And this is why I don't take the
Right.
anti position because now you're automatically lumped in with all kinds of people you may not agree
Yeah.
with. But what if you're just against this because you have natural suspicion, which is, I think, completely normal? Like I wouldn't take,
Right.
I mean, I'm suspicious of Halloween candy. It's like this is normal. You shouldn't
Right.
not be suspicious. But they try to make it look like
Yeah.
your natural fear is paranoia. So it's a complicated issue, but there should be a place for conscientious objectors, and that's where I'm at. I'm not
Yeah.
pro. I'm not anti.
I didn't like the fact that the government was trying to tell me what to do and with my body. You know what I mean? It's like I never took the flu deal. Ever. So. Which leads me to the next thing, and then if you don't mind, I'll hang up after this and let someone else call. But this might, I don't know, this might sound kind of paranoid, but I've been hearing a little bit here and there about even like dentists and the Novocaine that they're putting garbage in it.
Okay,
And I just
look, look,
recently
look.
had
Let
a
me say
root
something. Let me
canal
say something
done.
here. Let me say something here.
Yeah,
Uh, there's some absurdist paranoia out there, and the entire issue is
right.
purely political. It's all propaganda, all of it. Chemtrails
Okay.
are fake. Those are cirrus clouds. It's ice. It's actually beautiful. The reason why they're crisscrossed is because of flight paths. And do these
Right.
cirrus clouds linger if the climatic conditions are there? Yes. Does it block the sun? Yeah, but it's nice. Does it have an effect on the
Okay.
climate? Not even close to provable. Not even. And
Right.
my
Right.
point is that um, everything about the Psywar is fear-based. It's bifurcated. If you're on the left, you fear
Right.
stuff on the right.
Yeah.
Look, it's so perfect. The system is perfect. And if anything you're
Yeah.
suggesting brings in a partisan fear, it's fake. Why is it that only the right-wingers are scared of needles? Why is it only left-wingers are
Yeah.
afraid of guns? It's guns versus needles.
Yeah.
But look at the dynamic here. A gun is active, male, symbol of toxic masculinity. You could say phallic. The needle represents passivity, getting penetrated, and it's consistent with the left, the feminine and the masculine. It's all a psyop, and I don't fall for any of it. I'm not a needle phobe. I'm not a xenophobe. I'm not a gunophobe. I'm not a skyphobe,
Right.
which is a term I had to come up with to describe all these people falling for all the different ways that you can fear the sky.
Wow.
But hey, I
Yeah.
appreciate the
Okay.
call. I appreciate the call. I do believe that we have the right interpretation here. That the fear is the weapon. All these other things are
Yeah.
ways of dressing it up. But anyway, appreciate you
Right.
calling. And
Hey, thanks, Tim. I appreciate it.
mhm.
Take care.
No, the dentist is not trying to V you through the Novocaine. Very interesting call. Interesting timing. Yeah. Lean Dion says caller timing is interesting with all these flag terms. Yeah, I know. He's there at the FBI headquarters, and they're like, yeah, here's a list of terms. Call Tim and say this, this, and that. Just kidding. Benton says I'm a chemtrail phobe. Well, chemtrails don't exist, and it's not a position you can stand on. You can't rest on it. You will lose your credibility as an eyewitness if you're going to be influenced by logical fallacies. Interesting call though, and I like these questions, and it needs to be brought up. I've made it clear that, and it's actually apparent. You can look at it now. We have a one world religion, and they have a replacement concept for flood myths. They have a replacement concept for sin. The sea thing is a devil that the atheists believe in. How do you get these atheistic people to be regulatable by a priesthood when they don't believe in sin or devils or gods? You give them the science fiction equivalents. And look how quickly they converted to this new system. But again, I think it's fascinating though, because these are what I call truth or orthodoxies. Here's the thing: what holds the skeptics on the world stage? People are always like, "Oh, kill your TV, don't trust the media." Everyone can say that. People on the left say it. People on the right say it. But none of them go far enough to actually step outside of the box entirely. And that's because before you get out of the box, you have a lot of people there who are able to gatekeep the wanderers and give them alternative explanations. Like someone's like, hey, look, I don't trust the news. This climate change stuff doesn't make sense to me. It just seems like a way for communists to take our stuff. So what do? They look for alternative information, and what do they find? Oh, yeah, climate change isn't real, but you know what is real? Geoengineering. Yeah, those airplanes, not only is it toxic and it's poisoning you and it's giving us chemtrail lung, but it's altering the weather in a bad way because man is bad for the earth. Well, now you're in agreement with Greta. You just went from not agreeing to agreeing, but with a different pretext. But now you're both on the same sheet as NASA. It's a mind game. The only winning move is not to play. That's from War Games. Let's see what else we have here. Dewis and Pear says seemed innocent enough. Yeah, I would say that those terms are flagged because these are, of course, again, the truth or orthodoxies. I say chemtrail, I'm going to have a notification underneath the YouTube video, even if I say chemtrails don't exist. But these are hot button issues, and all these hot button issues are attached to red pills, which bring you deeper into the nightmare. So let's say you're a blue piller, you're a dreamer, and you're blissful, but then you have a friend who's got InfoWars on all the time. He's like, here's a red pill. Yeah, the planes are poisoning us. Oh, here's another red pill. The water, the fluoride, it's making you apathetic. That's the reason why you didn't wake up before. You got to drink the filtered water. Oh yeah, those immigrants, yep, they're here to outbreed us and take our jobs because we're being replaced, and it's all being financed by the Rothschilds. So every red pill you take brings you deeper into the nightmare vision that the Truthervillers live in. The Truther Village, Trutherville as I call it, they're having a very bad time in life. Their world's about to end at all times for a dozen different reasons. And now they're afraid to go to the dentist. They're afraid to go to the dentist because they don't want to get the V through the needle. But it's a system here designed to take anybody that's waking up and then plug them back in. But now, instead of their agitation being directed against the mind control, now they're fighting in the info war. Like Alex Jones says, you are the media now. Yeah, you are. And the media is mind control. You are part of the mind control infrastructure. Good job. Just as much as the whatever the issue is in 2020, the ones who were all for it, they were basically working for the government mind control operation. Well, the antis are as well. You've been drafted into the info war. I'm not fighting the info war. I am a conscientious objector. I'm a peacenik. And a lot of people have a problem with that. Like, oh, you're not agitated? You're not mad? You're not ready to run up the hills of a Capitol wearing buffalo horns, carrying a spear, shirtless, covered in bad tattoos for your country? No, I'm not. I'm not agitated. In fact, I have peace of mind when I'm online. When I'm here on the internet communicating with other thinking people, analyzing the worldview that the public believes in, and then comparing it to what we know to be true, yeah, I find this to be very calming. And it's peace inducing. I'm not about to go out and buy a gun and get a big old flag and then say, by bullet or by ballot, we're getting JFK Jr. into the office. You know, I saw that they were talking about Aaron Rodgers being a VP for RFK Jr., which would be fascinating. And I'm wondering if the nonners have decided that Aaron Rodgers is JFK Jr. in a mask. Has anyone floated that out there yet? Because they will believe it. All right, let's go through your comments. Lean Dion says Greta was arrested again. You know, we should get all of Greta's mugshots together. Like, you've seen those mugshot compilations. Like, here's the first mugshot, and then here's the one after they got caught doing meth, and then here's another one, 5 years of crack. And you see somebody devolve over like 50 mugshots. I would like to see Greta's mugshots over the years and see what happens to her. See if she looks like she's living green. Or is she going to get bigger? Let's see what we have else. Cole Anchor says, you've probably covered this. What's up with Dr. Creep? Sorry if it's out of topic. I'm not sure what Dr. Creep is. Let me take a quick look. I'm looking into a movie called Dr. Sleep, a Stephen King sequel to The Shining, about a baby that predicts 9/11, which is really interesting. When you look back at how the 9/11 attacks were planned, and then how they were executed. And then you see somebody devolve over like 50 mugshots. I would like to see Greta's mugshots over the years and see what happens to her. See if she looks like she's living green. Or is she going to get bigger? Shining had all kinds of 9/11 predictive programming. Okay, I'm looking at Dr. Creep. Looks interesting. Looks like if you have any information on it, you want to call me. I haven't looked into him yet. I haven't looked at the headlines. The Unmuted Mind says, what effect does Wikipedia banner have on videos? It's probably some kind of like subliminal thing. Like the normies probably see it and they just don't hear the video. Or they hear a subconscious reading of the Wikipedia article over your voice. Hollywood says, IPS, what's your take on oh yeah, the eye on the greenbacks, the all-seeing eye. It's the eye of, I think it's the eye of Nimrod. And my take on it is this, because if you look at the World Trade Center, the One World Tower, and you get close to the base of it and you look up, it looks like a pyramid, and it's just the way they designed it. It's intentional. But I was looking at this recently because there's a connection here. It goes to the dollar bill. But beneath the pyramid, it says 1776 in Roman numerals, and of course 1776 A.D., the beginning of the America, rather, the birth of America. But the One World Trade Tower is 1,776 feet high. And here's where it gets interesting, the connection. It goes into the pyramid on the back, 1776 AD, has a correspondence to 1776 AL, which is the Masonic Year of Light. You add 4,000 years, it goes back a little further. But the 1776 AL is when the Nimrod begins the construction of the Tower of Babel. So we're looking at the Tower of Babel and America's construction, both at 1776, AL and AD. So this number has a connection to this one world tower theme. And the pyramid itself has a connection to Giza, because the Great Pyramid in Giza is 5,776 inches high. 1776 AD was 5776 on the Masonic calendar. So this connection here is essentially that the building of the Tower of Babel corresponds to the building of America, and it all ties into the symbolism of this one world tower that reaches into the heavens, but of course the builder being Nimrod. And so the eye in the pyramid, if you ask me, it's the builder. And this Nimrod, of course, it's a biblical character. This is Bible lore, Masonic lore, but I think it's all just allegory for the one world view, which is what we have. This is the Tower of Babel, and man is already united with one language, the internet, with one mission, or the path to the heavens, the space programs. The space program represents the trip from Earth to the heavens, and it's interesting too that the richest man in the world, Bezos, has a space agency, and on the anniversary of the Apollo landing, he went up into space. They launched him up at 9/11. But I think it was very symbolic. Man stepping on the moon, the incursion into the heavens. I think it's all symbolic. But the dollar bill ties into the role of America as Babylon. And you look at the largest cathedral in the world, I think, the St. John the Divine in New York. That cathedral has in its pillars carvings that seem to show, New York as Babylon being pummeled by tidal waves. This is pre 9/11. You have the Twin Towers being bowled over by this tidal wave. And that is more suggestion that, the idea of America as Babylon. It's a recurring theme. The One World Trade Tower fits into this because of its height, but also because it's connected to this theme, of course. The Twin Towers sinking ties into America as the West sinking, but it's all emblematic of the coming fall of the tower. And this is all very significant right now with these planes falling. Leave the world behind. If you really get into the subtext, it's about America falling, the Tower of Babel. And what's going to take down 1776? 1619. The movie Leave the World Behind was showing this duality, 1776 versus 1619, two versions or two visions of America. And the boat White Lion, the oil tanker crashing into the beach, symbolizes the reckoning, the thing that's going to bring down America. And what is it? Well, it's going to be the leftist critique of America. The idea that America is, of course, intrinsically and structurally flawed and needs to fall. That's all built into the script. And I'm saying it was written into the script when this place was built. And I think you can find writings, Manly P. Hall, The Secret Destiny of America, the eagle being a phoenix. And we see a lot of the phoenix symbolism, and it's a reoccurring theme. The Burning Man, the phoenix, the building back better. All right, let me go through some comments. Holly Weird says Gemini duality, Janus narrative, pillars of duality. You know, have you seen the Gemini space program patch? You got to see this because this is interesting. I'll just pull this up on the screen. And this is long-term planning. I think Synchromorpheus showed this to me first. This is the patch for NASA Gemini, but tell me that doesn't look like the Twin Towers with impact points, the twins. It's all symbolism, and we've gone deep into the stuff, and we'll do some deep dives into this as well. Yep, Ageless Timeless Being says built to fake fall. Yeah, 1968, construction begins. 1968, 911 becomes the emergency number for the U.S. 33 years later, 9/11 happens. None of this was coincidental. 9/11, 1941, the Pentagon construction begins. 60 years later, that thing happens. Flight 77 hits the Pentagon 77 feet high. We've gone so deep into this that we've reverse engineered a masterpiece of propaganda, a movie superimposed onto the news with full complicity across the board globally. What 9/11 revealed is the monolithic nature of the control system that we're in. And that it didn't just start, that Bush didn't lie and people died. Nobody died. And yeah, Bush lied, but the entire media is built upon a lie. I mean, it's built upon an edifice of lies, but it's a movie enhanced worldview. Michelle says a popular song on TikTok right now is Babylon by David Gray. Yeah, I remember that song when it came out. Interesting. And okay, Babylon is a very significant symbol right now. If we go in, let me bring this article up. I actually had this bookmarked. The Pink Mass, Barbie as Whore of Babylon, mainstreaming Satanism, idol worship, and sexual revolution. I watched the Barbie movie, I reviewed it, but the symbolism in it, it's not about the Barbie toy. And the color pink has everything to do with the Templar cross, the red and the white, and a lot more, but the devil's in the details. Interestingly, though, the starting point for this would be Margot Robbie. And there's so many areas we can go into this. Every role she has played has built up the archetype of Margot Robbie as the Whore of Babylon being presented as the idol Barbie. She was even in the movie Babylon. She's on the cover in the place of what would have been Jane's Manfield, who had the pink palace, dressed in pink, high priestess in the Church of Satan, movie starlet, Hollywood Babylon, written by Kenneth Anger, who interestingly died last year. But he was a co-founder of the Church of Satan and instrumental also in, I think, mainstreaming thelemic concepts in what emerged publicly as the sexual revolution. But let me get into the connections here between all of this. So here's a few things I had mind mapped. First of all, Kenneth Anger and the Babylon working are also very well connected. Here's what's the Babylon working refers to Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard, and Marjorie Cameron back in the 40s, 1946, doing some kind of weird sex magic ritual to incarnate the spirit of the Antichrist, which might be Donald Trump. I mean, he would have been, in his mother's womb at this time. But the significance of this event is simply that Jack Parsons is like the godfather of modern rocket science. That JPL, some jokingly call it Jack Parsons Laboratory, but you can't separate from NASA and our scientific or our science-based worldview. You can't separate science fiction, L. Ron Hubbard, Jack Parsons, who was the American counterpart to Aleister Crowley, bringing back Mystery Babylon, and movie magic from our worldview. And movie magic represented by the movie starlet Marjorie Cameron. Marjorie Cameron was presented as their Red Witch, the Scarlet Woman. And in this new world paradigm in the occult of today, they've updated the names of the god and the goddesses. So they now refer to, Christ and Magdalene or Isis and Osiris as Babylon and the Beast. So the elite worship Babylon and the beast as the this basic masculine feminine. But we're going through a transformation in our age, and what Barbie represents is the iconoclasm of the god and the goddess and the introduction of a new goddess archetype. So instead of a virgin, now she's a whore. Barbie was introducing these concepts in Barbie feminism, notably when the movie opens up and it's a bunch of little girls playing with their dolls, pretending that they're in a kitchen. And the narrator is saying that motherhood is prison, it's a denial of selfishness, basically talking down being a mother. And then Barbie appears where the monolith would be. 2001: A Space Odyssey, a monolith appears and all the apes go wild. Well, in this case, Barbie appears instead of a monolith. And as the narrator is describing the drudgery of motherhood, the little girls begin bashing the heads of their babies on the rocks. So it's infanticide. Of course, the audience is laughing because it's funny. And they're killing their babies because they want to be like Barbie. Unattached to a superfluous male, they want to be able to buy stuff and live in their little Barbie land fantasy. So the Barbie land in the Barbie movie is a world dominated by this new archetype. And it goes, let me go deeper into this because there's a thread that connects Disney, Satanism, sexual revolution, UFOs, and this Barbie movie. And by the way, Kenneth Anger, who wrote Hollywood Babylon, was also a Mickey Mouseketeer and an eyewitness to some disturbing things about Walt Disney that he talked about. But now I want to talk about the color pink. And this also tied into this year's Super Bowl because the Super Bowl last year with Rihanna, she was the goddess in red surrounded by men in white. And she was pregnant and she made a display of her pregnant belly. So the red and the white are very symbolic here. We're talking about the white symbolizes the beast and the red is Babylon, the Scarlet Woman. This symbolism is also contained in the Gnostic Catholic Mass, the bread and the wine. But it represents the god and the goddess. In witchcraft, god and goddess. This theme was also apparent in Kendrick Lamar's Heart Part 5, which was an award-winning performance where he was in white with a crown, like Christ, surrounded by female dancers in red. So male dancers in white, pregnant woman in red. Male Christ figure in white, female in red. And he's covered in blood. And this is about mothers, and he actually dedicated this, I think, to women's rights. But this is the public meaning of it. But what's the occulted meaning of it? Well, we're looking at the Mystery Babylon fertility rite. The OTO described itself, and OTO is where you get, what Aleister Crowley came from, Jack Parsons, and L. Ron Hubbard's Scientology. It's all based on this, which is the OTO was a neo-Gnostic Christian Templar religion with sexual magic as its primary ritual secret. The OTO, Order of the Templars of the East. It's an occult secret society and hermetic organization which was founded at the beginning of the last century. So you see the red and the white of the cross? This is where you get pink from, as you'll see. Now, the sacrament of the Aeon, referred to by Aleister Crowley, and this is what Jack Parsons and company were all involved in, is the combination of, without getting explicit, we're talking about God and goddess, blood, and, it's like what we're looking at here, the sex magic stuff. It's all symbolism that's encoded in such a way that they can flaunt it in your face, and you would never think about it unless you had a dirty mind. But one of their codes, like the Templar cross or the Rose cross, all represent God and goddess or Babylon and beast. Even the Scientology cross is a rose cross. L. Ron Hubbard's organization is based on Thelema. In fact, this is an interesting picture. This is Scientologist John Travolta hanging out with Anton LaVey. And then here we go. Let's get into this part of it, though. The pink mass. So a black mass refers to the inversion of the icons of the Catholic religion, where you have these Satanists who are inverting the cross and distorting the meaning of everything. The nuns that they bring to the masses are actually prostitutes. And yeah, I think Benjamin Franklin is part of a club called the Hellfire Club that participated in these black masses. I call this the pink mass because what we're looking at here is the inversion of the goddess concept. And the new goddess is represented, of course, by Margot Robbie in Barbie. Pink represents the elixir in the tarot cards, the elixir held in the Holy Grail by the Whore of Babylon in the Lust card. So it's a very important concept in Thelema here, but this is the Lust card. It's the Whore of Babylon holding a elixir with pink in the chalice. And Holy Grail is symbolic, of course, of the goddess. If you go into the Grail symbolism, you kind of get some of this from Dan Brown. But again, the Barbie movie starring Margot Robbie, you could look at her as an avatar of this New Age goddess, the Scarlet Woman. The word Babylon means gates of the gods. So the Babylon priestess is a gateway to cosmic energies. This is what Elron and Jack Parsons were about. They said that this movie star, Marjorie Cameron, was a gateway to bring in the energies of the Aeon of Horus. Now, interestingly, the Kenneth Anger I mentioned earlier appropriated her for a movie called Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome about this very thing. So this isn't my random interpretation. This is exactly what they're communicating. But the color pink represents the union of Babylon and the beast. That's what it represents. Prior to Barbie, she was in Babylon based on Kenneth Anger's film. Here's a reference to it. Hollywood has always had a predilection for scandal, drama, and the occult. Anger grew up in Los Angeles and was introduced to Aleister Crowley and a philosophy which promised yoga, astral travel, and sex magic. He died May 11th of last year. Now, I don't know if he watched the movie before he died, but it was based on his work, and Margot Robbie later became Barbie. He was friends with part of the Church of Satan, which ties into, interestingly enough, Kenneth Anger was associating himself with Kinsey, Alfred Kinsey, who, of course, was the father of the sexual revolution. So this is getting into some really strange territory. If you look into the experiments of Kinsey, it was all just basically state-sanctioned child abuse. And I wouldn't even call it science. It was just real twisted stuff. But there's a photo of him with Kenneth Anger that's very telling because they're in the sex dungeon of Aleister Crowley. And I'm like, that's part of his scientific research into human sexuality, going into this pervert's dungeon and including this in his research that involved abusing a lot of people. Very strange stuff. So here is Margot Robbie on the cover of Babylon. And then this is the cover of Kenneth Anger's book. And again, this is Jayne Mansfield, who lived in a pink palace, dressed in pink, and was hanging out with the head of the Church of Satan, who was friends with Kenneth Anger. I mean, it's just such a small circle when you look at all these. A historical look at Jayne Mansfield Pink Palace in remembrance of the bombshell. Now, this is also interesting, too, because the term bombshell refers to, of course, these blonde or these movie starlets in their bikinis, but of course this is a reference. The bikini is named after Bikini Atoll, where an atom bomb was exploded in 1946, and they said that the explosive effect created by the bikini was akin to an atom bomb, right? So the interesting thing is that 1946 was the same year as the Babylon working, which is kind of an interesting connection. Again, Jayne Mansfield's involvement in the Church of Satan is well publicized. Here she is with the chalice. Now, the chalice in their ritual is the Holy Grail. It does represent, with the wine in it, it is exactly the same symbol as the one on the card. The Satanic Witch, which followed the Satanic Bible, was pink. They colored it pink. In fact, Zena LaVey has been in the news lately, kind of, because Princess what's her name? Taylor Swift. I'm sorry, we had a moratorium on mentioning her. But many people think Taylor Swift is some kind of clone of Zena LaVey. Well, Zena LaVey was baptized and given a pink Baphomet when she was a child. She was baptized into this church. But Anton LaVey's book, The Satanic Witch, was also pink. Now look what it says on the back. The Satanic Witch was not designed for Barbie dolls, but women crafty enough to employ the formula which surpass an entire catalog of new age idiocies. I just thought it was funny that there's a Barbie doll reference here. Kenneth Anger's movie My Demon Brother stars Mick Jagger and a member of the Manson family, Bobby Basoli, and Anton LaVey's in it. Just kind of mentioning that because the Manson cult victim, Sharon Tate, is portrayed by Margot Robbie. So in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Margot Robbie plays Sharon Tate. Again, Sharon Tate, killed by one of Anton LaVey's witches, Susan Atkins. Fascinating connection here. And then, of course, you had the Manson family member also with Anger. There are so many connections between Satanism, or the Church of Satan, Hollywood, and the Manson killings, and a few other serial killers that are worth looking at. In 1969, Sharon Tate was brutally murdered in her home in Los Angeles. She was stabbed 16 times in her stomach while pregnant. In witchcraft, the Great Rite, the knife, and the chalice, these are all symbols, so there might be some deeper meaning to it here. But anyway, in here is a picture of actually Susan Atkins, topless, coming out of a coffin. Kenneth Anger is here in the picture I mentioned earlier, hanging out with Alfred Kinsey, American biologist and sexologist, and they're hanging out in one of Crowley's dungeons. And then Anger later recruited Marjorie Cameron to do a film. Here's a picture of her. And this was called Inauguration of the Pleasure Dome. And this was celebrating this new goddess, Babylon, being introduced to the world, replacing the other goddesses. And this is, of course, the red goddess, the Scarlet Woman that was portrayed recently, Rihanna. And in the recent Super Bowl ceremony, you did have Alicia Keys as the goddess in red, dancing with Usher. Let me bring up that picture, because these are pagan ceremonies. That's really what it comes down to. And that's why the symbolism is so consistent. Here is, and he's wearing a phoenix, by the way, which is another major symbol in the Gnostic Catholic Mass and in alchemy and sex magic. It's another one of these important symbols that they constantly reiterate. But again, you have Usher and Alicia Keys, red and the white. Christ, or rather Babylon and Beast, that's what that really represents. Okay, moving on. The film reflects Anger's deep interest in Thelema, the philosophy of Aleister Crowley, as indicated by Marjorie Cameron's role as the Scarlet Woman. This was Crowley's concept of a goddess, and she served as a direct inspiration for the film. The Babylon working was a ritual to summon and unleash the energies of the new aeon. Now here's where this is even more interesting to me, because there's so much nuance here in these connections. Jack Parsons, rocket scientist, was part of something called the Suicide Squad. And he died at the age of 37 when there was an explosion. A bombshell killed him. And I think it's all symbolic. I don't think he really died in this way, but he was in something called the Suicide Squad, which ties into a Margot Robbie role she was in that Suicide Squad. Just another fascinating connection here. Now he blew up, bomb making materials, Suicide Squad designation. Now if we take the term blonde bombshell to mean goddess, avatar, or Scarlet Woman, you could say that Jack Parsons euphemistically exploded with Marjorie Cameron. Margot Robbie in the Suicide Squad, again, here's a picture of her. And he is killed by a bomb. Now, Barbie as the Whore of Babylon. This is the article. I'm still scrolling down, but here's another section. Babylon and the Beast is an inversion of Magdalene and the Christ. It's an updated template. The difference now is that Isis is unveiled. She was shrouded and concealed by patriarchy. Barbie is all about down with the patriarchy. This messaging represents the progressive left breaking down the traditional or nuclear family, generally thought of as a married couple and their biological children. So this is also another connection. Barbieheimer last year, is all about Barbieheimer. Why are they mixing Barbie and Oppenheimer? Well, there's a connection between the splitting of the atom and the splitting of the nuclear family. We're seeing some correlations here. 1946, the new age beginning, and what we're seeing is this new beginning. Barbie showing up as a monolith is very significant in this context as well. Now, again, unveiled. Nearly 2/3 of Americans who went to see the Barbie movie said the film made them more aware of the effects of patriarchy in the workplace, according to a survey. ResumeBuilder.com survey was conducted by Pollfish, and they had 300 U.S. respondents who saw the movie. So the unveiling of ISIS refers to the rejection of shame and traditional roles. And the New Age movement is all based upon this radical transformation of all mankind. So the new gods are being introduced to facilitate this. This is ISIS Unveiled, H.P. Blavatsky. Here's some mentioning of the Tower of Babel. We talked about this earlier. And this is their Masonic lore. Anno Lucius, Year of Light, 1776, which is 120 years after the flood. That's when the Tower of Babel's creation begins. And I mentioned that Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, has some connections to Nimrod on the world stage. Well, he's building this thing, says, move over Nimrod. Amazon gets green light for its own Tower of Babel. In Virginia, he's building the Helix building. So I'm bringing up this because we're talking about the significance of course, the Barbie idol being introduced right now and how it correlates to America as the Tower of Babel. Here's a picture from the stonework on the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, which has the Twin Towers being destroyed. And this was before the year 2000. And of course, the new tower, being 1776 feet high, it's a symbol. It's Nimrod's challenge to God. Here's the bill with the all-seeing eye and Roman numerals. Also, Dr. Evil looks very similar to Bezos by design. Dr. Evil's headquarters is there in a space needle. And the symbol of the space needle is another symbol of the Tower of Babel. Space is the new heaven in this new modern paradigm. In fact, I have an example here of Bezos laughing like
You
Dr.
have grander
Evil.
space ambitions than going to the edge of it. Did this moment motivate you to push deeper into the cosmos?
Hell yes.
Yeah, the Dr. Evil Bezos connections are intentional. I've gone into the iconography, the symbolism, the character building, but focusing more on this space, aliens, and the Babylon working. So here's a very significant point here. Marjorie Cameron was the first eyewitness to a UFO. This was in 1946, the year before the one in Roswell was sighted. And Roswell landed in Corona Field, by the way. But Marjorie Cameron witnessed something in 1946, the year of the Babylon working, meaning they do this ritual and they have some kind of light from space descend. She sees a unidentified flying object or something. Now, she's a movie star and an avatar of Babylon, and therefore you could say a Stargate. And I recently watched, after I watched Barbie, I watched this Asteroid City, and it was about movie stars. But it starred Scarlett Johansson, and the movie is about an alien visitation, so she's one of the first to see the alien. And this is the movie where they pray, "Dear alien who art in heaven." And I mentioned that in our modern paradigm, space is the new heaven. Let me play this clip from Asteroid City. This is
1, 2, 3.
Dear alien who art in heaven, lean and skinny, about 6'7".
okay, that's about it. Dear alien who art in heaven. Now, it's a comedy movie, sure, but in this godless, atheistic New World Order religion, aliens are the replacement for angels. And that's what this represents. So they're praying to aliens. Space is the new heaven. The alien visitor, though. Now, here's the thing. The alien visitor represents the energies summoned by Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron, the Babylon and the Beast in this ceremony. Here's Scarlett Johansson, and just note her name. The name Scarlett is very significant in a movie where she goes out into the desert and sees the alien descending. An interesting point. When they go to watch the aliens descend, they're actually looking for some kind of celestial event, which means that they have to put on these devices so they can see it. It's like it's a box over their heads. So you have a room full of people, a gathering of people with boxes on their heads, which is of course a cube, which I think is very symbolic. The cube on the head, and then the alien that descends from the sky has a hexagonal, six-pointed star-shaped craft. And there's a connection here between the six-pointed star and the cube, and the idea of a light being descending into matter. Very interesting esoteric connection here. But what I'm pointing out here is that the fact that Marjorie Cameron was the first to see an alien or UFO connects the space program with this Babylon and the occult. And now, of course, we're bringing it up to speed with Barbie. Barbie as the latest iteration of this. Here she is as the monolith, and the Stargate thing is also an important key point here. The space program, because what I'm bringing up here is that the space program isn't really about taking you to some distant paradise. It has a few different functions. One function is worldview formation. It keeps us all on the same sheet. We all agree this is what the world looks like. This is the game board as seen from afar. And you can trust your elevated priesthood who've gone far enough away to see it. It's also there to give you a utopian blueprint for the best way to live. The Mars program, since its inception, even with the Russian space pioneers, has always been space communism. Create the ideal, sustainable, utopian society, and then ask humanity, well, look, if it's so perfect, why don't we live on Earth as we do on Mars? So they're using the space program to sell you on idealism, on utopianism, on something that you can't have until you destroy what is. So it's actually kind of a revolution against freedom. But the space program is, again, designed to get you to accept this new worldview. And, of course, it's got this other function. It is a replacement for the archaic concept of heaven, but it transcendence. It has an esoteric aspect. It still conveys the traditional symbolism. I would argue that space travel is allegory for higher states of consciousness. There's a reason why. I mean, look, the numerology, 33 vertebrae, and it symbolizes the trip from the base of the spine to the top of the spine, the path of the fire snake, consciousness rising. It's not a new concept, the idea of man's higher states of consciousness being, symbolized in various ways, usually a snake climbing, but in this modern context, they've given us a symbol of transcendence, which is man exiting the world in a rocket. But the thing is, the speed that you need to go to leave the world is Mach 33. So I'm like, oh, that's actually very consistent with the idea of transcendence or exiting the material realm being correlated with 33. 33, of course, being the symbol of the higher state, which is why, of course, Christ transcends at 33. Going through some comments here really quick to make sure I haven't missed anything. Nicholas Pitts says, I see April 8th as the eclipse and the biblical new year, April being the first of the 13 months. Oh, yeah, Pisces is the final sign, so we're starting the new year in that sense, in the sense of the zodiac. And also this eclipse represents a great Xing over America. It started in 2017. Now they're crossing that line. So we're crossing that line on 4/8. It will have been X'd. And this follows the recent Class X solar flare that shut off so many people's phones. Disease X, Twitter X. The X is a very key symbol in all of this stuff. In fact, SpaceX is a huge part of this. The University of Texas and SpaceX have something called the Stargate. The University of Texas system, the arrival of SpaceX provides a platform for the establishment of Stargate, the first research center of excellence for the UT of Rio Grande Valley. The Stargate connection here is interesting because, again, I think it references the movie Stargate. Babylon, again, means gate. And Stargate references not literal stars, but the astral realm. And that's what these goddesses represent in their system. Like, I'm not saying this is all true, but I'm saying that the Thelemic concept, their belief, is that the priestess is a conduit, a gateway. So in the Barbie movie, she lives in this place called Barbieland, and she has to open a portal and go through a membrane to enter our world. And the whole idea here that I'm getting at is that the Babylon working, according to them, was to bring in the new goddess energies and infuse the world with the Whore of Babylon, the Babylon idea, the Babylon goddess, right? The Barbie movie is about Barbie Land entering our world through a portal. It's literally the same story. Barbie Land is Babylon. Barbie coming through the portal to enter the world and create chaos and destroy the role of traditional roles of men, introducing Barbie feminism. The men in her world are all Ken dolls. You see what I'm suggesting here is that the movie was actually about the Babylon working. The Barbie movie was about the introduction of the Whore of Babylon, and it's even in California where she shows up, which is where the Babylon working happened. So the pink, again, symbolizes the Babylon working, Babylon and the beast and their union. And when she enters the world bringing the pink, it's all about this new aeon and its energies being released into the world. And interestingly enough, the chalice is a symbol of the goddess, as the knife or the athame, the dagger, is a symbol of the god. So again, knife and cup. Not hard to understand, euphemistically, male, female. So it's kind of interesting that at the end of the movie, Ken is still a doll, but Barbie becomes a real woman. And the very last word in the Barbie movie is gynecologist. She literally asks to see one. It's the last word in the movie. So the final word in this movie is she's a real woman, and they reference the Holy Grail, the chalice. They reference the symbol of the Whore of Babylon at the very end, the Whore of Barbylon. Not a coincidence. This is a revelation. It's a revealing, and it's idol worship. I have more here on Margot Robbie and more symbolism, and there's just so much. It's so deep. But what I'll say is this. The Barbie movie did not arise in a vacuum. It was coordinated with Oppenheimer. We've already explored the connections between the bombshell and the goddess euphemism. You know, interestingly enough, after this, Leave the World Behind came out. And Ethan Hawke's character, and he's a Ken doll. He's a Kenified man. He's wearing a Bikini Kill shirt. And he's wearing Bikini Kill. And while he's wearing this, another character says something about how his son could sleep through an atom bomb. Now, his son could sleep through an atom bomb. Atom bomb connects with Bikini Island, 1946. 1946, the nuclear tests, and of course the term bombshell. So you have Bikini Island, atom bomb, Bikini Kill. But then you dig deeper. Bikini Kill is a feminist band. So it's a like Barbie feminism. So you have more feminism connected with, of course, a reference to the atom bomb, Barbieheimer. And of course, Bikini Kill. In the movie, there's actually a nuke. So it's like that actually foreshadows that as well. But the Barbie turns into a living being, and she's an idol. And of course, here's something else about idol worship. In the way that we talk about idol worship, you know, usually think about like a graven image or a statue. But no, in the way they actually worship idols, it's in living idols, as in a living being, turned into or treated as an avatar of the goddess. They call it drawing down the moon, for example, where the high priestess is the goddess for the context of that ritual. I would say that Rihanna, for example, at the Super Bowl was being worshipped as a avatar of the goddess at that time, a living idol. And Margot Robbie is just the latest avatar of this Babylon goddess, and this is all ritual magic, and it's all to facilitate the transition into this new age. I have a follow-up article that goes deeper into the symbolism of the Barbie movie. For example, they try to put her into a box, like because she's out of her toy box, when she goes into the headquarters of Mattel. And it's all very symbolic, every single piece of it. But at the top of the Mattel Tower, which is a phallic tower, which they even draw attention to, the CEO even calls it that, they try to put her back in the box. Well, the idea here, I think, is connecting her to Pandora and Pandora's box. And again, all these ideas of the goddess energies being released, releasing chaos into the world. It's the reoccurring theme. Eve, Pandora, Barbie, all very much disruptive of the status quo. And we're talking about the patriarchy. All right, let's continue here. Tyrone says Robbie was in the movie Bombshell about Fox News. Interesting. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. By the way, Fox News, F6, O is 15, or 1 plus 5, 6, X is 2, 4, and 6. So Fox has a 666 built into it. And 666 is the number of the beast. It's how they represent their god, their sun god, their earth god. That's what it really comes down to. They have another number they use to reference the goddess. I'm not going to get too deep into their numerology, but my point being, we're unmasking what has always been in our faces this entire time, which is the unveiling of this new religious paradigm in its exoteric and esoteric aspects. By the way, there's a link in the chat if you want to join the Parallel Media community on X. I say we can get 10,000 people involved in this parallel media, this philosophical divide that we're really expanding upon and highlighting. We have to drive that wedge to quarantine from Trutherville. And I know there's far more than that. But my objective is let's get 10,000 consolidated somewhere before we make the next major step forward. First step is quarantining. And a barometer of how well we're doing will be how big the community on X grows. So if you follow me on X, the link's there. Just join the Parallel Media community. And I only post relevant information there to what we're talking about. Parallel Media is distinct from alt media. And alt media is a subset of mainstream media. They're in the same box. So when you're going into what I call the parallel media or the off-world stage, you're actually exiting both. You're not leaving one foot in the matrix. Yeah, Oswaldo mentions she was in the movie Babylon. Again, the Babylon movie I mentioned first because that connects to Kenneth Anger, to Thelema, Church of Satan, and to the sexual revolution, Alfred Kinsey. And it connects her to Jane Mansfield, who was like a living Barbie doll dressed up in pink in a pink palace, who was another high priestess in the Satanic Church. And the color pink also in the chalice, very much symbolic of the black and the white, which I mentioned having to do with the Super Bowl fertility rites of the last few years. Let's see, let me go through my notes here. David Hogg said, guess where many of the guns being used to destabilize Haiti are coming from? Hint, it's America. I asked, who's supplying the barbecue sauce? Does anybody believe that they're actually cannibalizing people? I don't. I don't have enough information to believe that. And what I have seen has been repurposed, recycled propaganda or other clips from other times and other places that I can't even verify. I saw one convincing video of cannibalism, but it turned out it was a Halloween prop from a year ago. Okay, continuing. Alex Jones is going to be the subject of an HBO documentary very soon, so we'll be watching that. Here's something. Sacramento, California, fake gunfire will be banned from active shooter drills in California under this proposed legislation on Tuesday. And it will require schools to notify teachers in advance that they're planning to do a drill. Fascinating. There must be some blowback against this. But fake gunfire. You know, they use something called simunition, which is simulated rounds, where they actually have things that discharge. But the idea that they're not told it's a drill, this is the big secret. And this is why I'm confident saying that Alex Jones is a fake canary in a fake coal mine, and that he's distracting you from a forest of fakery. They're not going to take your guns. You know why? Because the purpose of these mass shootings, these psyops, isn't to take your guns. It's to create the perceived need for drills. That's why. The whole purpose is the drills. And why drills? Because the drills are how they terrorize the population. This is terrorism. The hyper-realistic school shooting drills constitute a form of psychological warfare against children, perpetrated by the state. Gives them Stockholm syndrome. Who rescues them? Oh, the black-clad soldier, black-clad paramilitary police with big guns. Yeah, those are the ones who are saving the kids from the Second Amendment practitioner out there. Because that's who we got to fear. You got to fear the people who believe in the Second Amendment. Don't fear the armed police response. You know, those are the good guys that save you. You see? But when you really get down to it, if these drills are predicated on a threat that doesn't exist, then it's the police, it's the ones doing the drills who are the actual terrorists. It's the teachers who are the terrorists, who are perpetrating superstition, fear, and paranoia. And I'm saying is that is the point. So in this sense, is Alex Jones really a good guy? Like, is he really fighting for the truth in any way if he's not exposing that there's no need for drills? No. Because in his view, these things are being instigated or stimulated. They're not simulated. And that's the main distinction here. Are these events simulated or stimulated? Are they provoked and are they real? No, they're all fake. They're all fake. And prove me wrong on this. Look, I'm saying every single mass shooting event has been theater. If you have some information to prove otherwise, bring it, because we've been looking for a long time. And if your assumption is, if it's reported, it's real, I'm sorry, but that's not good enough. They report lies all the time. And sometimes they're forced to admit it. I love looking at that NPR article, The School Shootings That Weren't, where you can find that in the 2015-2016 school year, NPR investigated, wow, it was like 300 mass shootings. And it turns out there were 11. It turns out of those 11, these weren't even mass shootings. These were incidents that were misclassified. In other words, these reports are largely exaggerated and nobody's fact-checking. Oswaldo says the barbecue guy was on the news years ago. Oh yeah, the guy in Haiti who is barbecuing people. Yeah, I saw him wearing a Masonic necklace. I mentioned that yesterday. Do Masons eat people? You have the satanic cannibal in Russia. So satanic people eat or do cannibalism, but do Masons. Well, some would say Masons are ultimately Satanists, so maybe they all do at some point. Have the Greenies spoken up? Isn't cannibalism kind of green from their perspective? Is it not cannibalism a net gain for Mother Nature? Now, here's a really strange story right now. I don't plan to get too deep into it, but Alex Jones is all over it. It just sounds like they're recycling 2016. But it has to do with Candace Owens, who is, quote, staking her entire professional reputation on saying that Bridget Macron, the president's wife, is a man. I don't know how many of you have heard this. There's a documentary about it. She's sued people for this. And the fascinating thing is Candace Owens is actually bringing this up as the biggest political scandal in history. And Alex Jones is, of course, jumping all over it, and they're all jumping on to this bandwagon again. And I'm sure the transvestigationists are happy about this, but Candace Owens has long been called out by the same people calling out Bridget Macron. She is also believed to be a male by transvestigationists, who also believe that I am a woman. Strange world. But she's staking her reputation on this, which is fascinating. What is the agenda here? What are they doing? Mainstreaming transvestigation? And in the last 6 months, there's been a change with Discord, where Discord has a policy, I believe, Yeah, Discord explicitly bans misgendering. So I'm not sure what's going on with this. I'm open to anyone's interpretation, but it's a strange time in the world right now where you have mainstream influencers going so deep into the weeds here. Elephant Tusk says, Tim, you do well manning a phone line in a crisis hotline. I have. Yeah, DirecTV was having a crisis. A lot of people were getting ripped off because they were getting these callers at weird hours from mostly the Philippines, and the people being called were retirees, and a lot of them just couldn't understand what they were being told, and they didn't know that the freebies they were given with Stars and with I believe it was AMC, they didn't know that these things would actually expire in 3 months. So you have people on fixed incomes by the tens of thousands getting all this great new TV programming from DirecTV, and then in 3 months they're hit with a $300 bill, and they're like, "What the hell happened?" So they call me to cancel in a state of crisis because now they're broke and they pay too much for stuff they never watched. And my job was to keep them as customers, avert the crisis, and I did. I was in retention, and I helped keep them hooked onto their programming with free credits and promises to do better. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, we're getting close. I have to go do a few errands. Join the IPS Parallel community, Parallel Media. Right now we have 20 members. It doesn't sound like a lot, but we're the ground zero for what is going to be a major schism. I mean, this is it's almost like a denomination in a sense. There's a need for this. There's a vacuum. There's a major void waiting to be filled. Fake mainstream and fake alternative have a monopoly on this stuff, and they exist within the world stage fictional universe, and their only way of defending it is by distracting people from really what we're saying, from pointing out the man behind the curtain, and no one else is doing it, and we're organizing on this basis. So it's going to be a very interesting year coming up ahead. I didn't get through all of my tweets here, but I just wanted to point out here, and I'll put a link in the chat, that if you join this this specific community here, you'll be really at the cutting edge, ground zero of this, the cutting fringe. There's also a new section on here on my Twitter account, articles, where I'm posting a number of articles that show up on my other blogs, but I'm consolidating everything here to make it easier to share. I put out a recent one called "The Sun Was Never Yellow and the Sky is Clear. Exit Trutherville." If you're not auto-hoaxing, you're not paying attention, among others. Anyway, thanks for the calls. Appreciate the chats, and the chat room is very, very active right now. And I think we're going to be live likely tomorrow morning. I have a lot to go over. We hardly got through everything, and we're still trying to get back into Discord, and that's going to happen very soon. Duos in Paris says, getting an X account is on my list of things to do. Yeah, look, X is garbage by design. They're allowing Musk to sabotage this public commons. He's a fall guy for free speech. Disease X that the WHO is preparing for, the one that's going to shut down the world, is not something coming from a bowl of bat soup. Disease X is a reference to the mind virus to come. And it's all part of this immune system they're building to prevent any kind of organized skepticism. So if there is an inoculation to Disease X, it is this. It is Infinite Plane Radio. Just go to IPS Insider on my Twitter account, and at the very top of my profile, it actually has a direct link to join the community there. And I'll also put a link in the newsletter. Cole Anchor says, I'm glad I found this group. It's honestly kind of crazy. I only did a day of digging when I was bored. Well, this group has been suppressed for years, and there's a long story here, but there was every effort made to prevent a networking of media skeptics at this level, and we've evolved into something. And this think tank represents something much bigger than us, but it's just been marginalized and atomized and split up. And what we're doing now is we're consolidating. I'm not trying to wake up Normieville. We're going to burn down Trutherville. But ultimately, we're reaching out to the people who've already stepped outside of the box. There's really no time to pull people out of it. We're not rescuing people from Plato's cave, let them enjoy their puppet shows. We have more important things to do. Hark says, appreciate you, Tim. How about a lifetime sub deal, $40, thinking that many would just go in on it? Interesting. Okay, there is that option, by the way. If you go to ips.monster and sign up, I do have an annual option, but I'll come up with something. That's probably a good idea. And I am going to take into account what the other caller said about getting old content back in. All right, this has been fun. This is Auto Hoax, or GTFO, Chief Crow and the Flat Earth Worms. We'll start off earlier tomorrow.